Starting your own practice is hard for many chiropractors. It's riddled with both struggles and successes. But here at the Chiropractic Philanthropist, we make it easy by having chiropreneurs and entrepreneurs share their struggles and lessons learned in life and business so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. And now here's your host, Dr. Ed Osborne.
ChiroThin plug-and-play chiropractic-only weight loss program is adding hundreds of thousands of dollars and nearly unlimited supply of new chiropractic patients to offices all over North America. Yes, it's even approved by Health Canada. You don't have to change your philosophy, learn a new technique, or spend money traveling to seminars. Just take their system, implement it, and experience exactly what you've been looking for: increased cash revenue and more chiropractic patients. For more information or to test ChiroThin in your office, go to chirothin.com and click on the pricing tab.
So welcome to the TCP podcast, Dr. Nima.
That was so good, like Bob Barker.
Exactly.
Hello.
It's
Hello.
like, I'm so excited to have you on the show today. Now, I know who you are. Why don't you share with us and the listeners about who you are? Now, like, clearly you don't need any introduction, so we can just roll right into this conversation.
Yeah, depending on the circle that's paying attention, and infamy is a consideration. But sure, let's talk. Like, we got a lot to talk about.
Well, let me see. I'm horrible at introductions, but maybe I can try. So, Dr. Nima, previous chiropractor who has quite a story, right? So, successful practice in BC, so Vancouver, British Columbia.
Yep.
Massive desire. Actually, online YouTube star first, we could say.
Yeah. All like 800, all 800 or 900 subscribers. Massive.
You were a star in my eyes. So, and then,
Okay.
and then
All that
basically, yeah, great practice, great challenges with practice, working into the online space, being very successsul there, working back into some more practice again, I believe, and then back into like Rocky 2 with the comeback, and back into, really the discussion of what we're talking about today and helping people heal through trauma. And I would say that
you did amazing. You did amazing. Yeah, absolutely. On both sides of the fence, healing from it, being part of it, participating in it, looking at both sides of the fence, getting kind of an overview perspective of what causes relational breakdowns. I mean, we're in the healing profession. And I was trained as a chiropractor to hands on the spine and remove interference to the, flow of energy that blocks us from healing. And what I discovered is most people coming in with health problems were dealing with stress-related problems that were unresolved. And when you ask them what was going on with their stress-related issues, it was usually a relationship breakdown, whether it was like a client of mine from yesterday. She hadn't spoken to her mom in 4 years, anger towards mother, father stuff. You're just carrying those rocks in your backpack with you, and then they transfer over into your romantic relationships, creating all sorts of breakdowns. And then without getting that complete, you then end up feeling disconnected from your purpose, disconnected from yourself, disconnected from your purpose, blocking intimacy in every area of your life, not really feeling seen and heard because you don't know how to see and feel and hear yourself. And then the relationships break down, and then now your health turns to shit, and you're now taking medications, and you're wondering, why is nothing working? And I just really loved, I saw the value in consistently going upstream with my patients. And so now I have a beautiful kind of combination of seeing patients with stress-related problems in my chiropractic part-time practice. And then I do mentoring and teaching, coaching, and I just created a new show called Trigger Proof, which helps people kind of expand that space between stimulus and response, as Viktor Frankl says.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I mean, a lot of people who are probably listening right now or watching this, have you ever been in that position where you just feel like nothing's working?
This is if you're an entrepreneur, And you got to get used you got to get used to that feeling. But yeah, in relationships, how many times do you go, all right, like I don't know if this is working, nothing's working, I can't get through, and we get stuck. This is a very common feeling of being stuck. And I wanted to explore the neuroscience of that, Ed, because if I could then unstuck me, and I can come up with an actual system, like because I'm very analytical as well as creative. So I'm like, okay, so how do I break this down in easy to follow steps to unstuck yourself, whether it be in relationship limbo or career or disconnection from purpose? Maybe I can help other people with it if I can do it for myself.
But why is it important? Why does it matter, man? Like, I mean, shouldn't we just be able to like internalize this shit and move on?
We should, ideally, in an ideal world, you wake up, in an ideal world, Ed, you wake up and you are absolutely certain of why you're here, what your superpowers are, what your zone of genius is, what contribution that you're able to make in the world. You feel connected to that power and that contribution. And you don't, ideally as well, you don't give a shit about what other people think about you. You're okay with receiving criticism, and not like, you don't have these deep core wounds that cause you to get like, thrown off the rails if somebody says, something that you perceive as rejection. Ideally, you are completely in an authentic way where you can actually show up, take off the mask, and fully be who you are. Be yourself, which reminds me, the very first time you interviewed me, I just keep like getting mind blown by you, because the first time you interviewed me was probably like 4 years ago. You requested an interview. We got on a call, and I just heard this like timid little mouse on the other side of the call, and you're like, I can't be myself. There's no way I can be myself. And I'm like, I know, but that shit impacts your health. See, the reason why I'm interested in talking about that is because as a healthcare provider, what I discovered was that not getting that part right actually, the end stage of this entire stream of being disconnected from self, who you are, worrying too much about what other people think, paralyzing fear of rejection, lack of authenticity, lack of ability to be oneself, constantly going through the world with a mask because you had to get your survival needs met. You're completely disconnected from self. And then the gift of a health crisis is it forces you to frickin' look. And it forces you to look and go, who am I? How have I been showing up in my relationships? How have I contributed to the toxicity? Rather than sitting here playing victim to that asshole, narcissistic jerk, bitch, slut, whatever it is you want to call that person who you're so angry and resentful for, which is when people come to me and they're very charged with resentment. And my first job is to basically let's really guide and join in on the universe that helped get you here, and let's see, what did you do to contribute to getting yourself here? Because unless you take full 100% ownership for why you're there, you're then constantly at the mercy of another person, at the effect of their ego, hoping that someone else outside of you is going to come and rescue you. And it will never frickin' happen. And I had to fall on my face a few times for me to finally get that.
It's
so why is that important? Why is that important? Is because your whole life depends on you being connected to higher self and your purpose. And we should already know this. It should already be self-evident. Yeah, it should. But my father never sat me down and said, here, let me show you how to empathize with other people. Let me show you how to feel seen and heard. Let me show you how to love yourself. Nobody sat me down and taught me. So I had to learn it through crisis and struggle and failure.
So, I posted this like today, like fear is a liar, right? So like, and then I posted on social media, it's like, at the root of all anger, because you're like that, that bitch, that, whatever, like that anger.
Whatever.
Do you believe, is that true? Like, I mean, that's what I was feeling. So that's why I posted it this morning. Is like, it's really like, if I really get deep into like why I'm so angry or why I'm holding the resentment, it's really the basis of it is fear. There's fear.
Correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, here's what it is that nothing you're dealing with, Ed, right now in your life, that what you're going through is actually about what it's about right now. It's an old wound. We'll call it emotional wound. And the reason why I like calling it that is because as chiropractors, we deal with many physical wounds. You know, I hurt my shoulder, lower back, you know, I doing squats and I hurt it. So they're coming in with physical wounds. And if they don't get it corrected, if they don't get those wounds properly healed, what happens is it affects them down the road, right? And then they'll bend down to, you know, tie their shoelaces, and then all of a sudden that old wound gets activated. That's what happens to us with emotional wounds. So in your childhood, whether you are consciously aware of it or not, or it's been so freaking painful that you've been blocking it away, Ed, what happens is that you have an emotional wound, betrayal. You have let's say your folks got divorced. Every single thing that happened, or you got bullied as a kid, or there was sexual, there was some, you know, sexual events that happened in your childhood, and then you go into your teenage years in the schoolyard, and there's bullying, and there's, you know, dating, and all of this stuff. You have accumulated a long list, shit list of emotional wounds in your life, and they're sensitive. So then what happens is you get into a relationship with somebody, you say, you know, with this ring IV wed, and you're like, okay, it's that and then you live with the delusion that it's that person's job to make you happy or protect you from those wounds, when in actual fact, it's their freaking job to help you bring them up and activate them so that you can actually do the work of resolving and healing those wounds from the past. And so, what happens is this anger that you're talking about that's happening now is an old wound. So one of the biggest ones you want to look at, if you're really looking at your life, one of the ones you really want to look carefully at is the wound of rejection. Okay, the abandonment, and it's a perception of rejection, because children inherently are all narcissistic. They make everything about them. Parents getting split, or something happens, or parents are fighting, and then I, as the child watching, I assume that it's because I'm not worthy enough. I'm not lovable. They're fighting because I'm not lovable. That's the interpretation that a child makes. That becomes a rejection wound. So then what will happen is you carry that with you, and it's totally hidden in the shadows until all of a sudden you literally get triggered. You react. There is no space between stimulus and response. It's just stimulus, reaction. There's no space, and then you're just reacting, and you're completely unconscious. So the anger is an old wound, is an old unresolved wound. And so the triggers then, what my new kind of message is after my latest discoveries on my recovery, is that the wound and the triggers are a window. What we mostly do is, I'm going to stay away from you, Ed, because I don't like hanging out with you because you trigger me. Well, the new model is, I'm going to go spend more time with Ed because he fucking triggers me. And
Wow.
And I want to learn what wound he's bringing up in me. That's called conscious training, conscious relationships, intimacy upgrade. This is the new model. This is what I've really delved into, you know, and it's been quite a freaking interesting journey. It's like, who triggers me more? Oh, that person. I'm going to go and hang out with them. So I'm not kidding.
I get it, dude. I get
what
it.
I did last summer, is I moved back in with my parents for 3 months for that very purpose.
Oh
and I know it's crazy. Ram Dass says, if you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your parents. I freaking did the unthinkable. I moved in for 3 months with them, so that I put my place up on Airbnb, and I just went in, and I went into my triggers, because I'm like, I'm tired of running away from them. And so on the other side of this experiment that I used my own life to be, because my life is my message, on the other side of that were some revelations and a new model, which I call trigger proof. And I'm writing a book about it too. And it's basically going from unconscious to unfuckwithable.
Nice.
because the trigger is an unconscious thing that comes up, and by making that trigger conscious, you're like, oh, okay, that just caused a reaction. I don't know where the hell that came from. Wonder where that came from. Let's go in and look, because I want to become a more heart-centered, empathetic human being that's deeply intimate and has really high quality relationships, because I was never freaking taught.
I'm going to give you a scenario, and I think a lot of people will relate to this, because it's a social media scenario. So there's people who trigger me, dude, to the point.
Yes, I know that.
I want to throat punch them. Like,
I know.
It's like
I watched you.
I'm like, if I see that person, if I'm at like Cal Jam or something, if I see that person, I'm like, I think I'm going to throat punch them. Like, so there's.
I hear you.
And then yet, even though they trigger me, dude, I'll find myself like getting sucked in, and I'm like, even though I don't follow them, I don't see them on social, I'll like get on their social media. Like, they trigger you so much, you actually go and you I like how you say, like, you got to hang around them. It's like you go onto their Facebook, you're like, oh yeah,
you're looking,
really triggering me now.
Yeah. What you're doing is, here's what you're describing, Ed, is a very interesting thing. It's ego. See, our ego, when we get triggered, we go into an egoic state, and your ego is all about creating separation. So what's happening is, you just got triggered by that person. You're knee deep in ego. You want to defend yourself. How do you know that you're in ego? Your ego's driving the bus. You want to defend yourself, and you want to attack them back. And you want to identify, you become deeply ingrained in your own identification of separation. So what you're going to do is, you're going to go and obsessively then feed that ego by looking at this is what happens when you go through breakups and everything like that. It's just a very egoic state of going and gathering and collecting evidence so that your ego can identify with a position, and it feeds its identity. And the drama, we love the drama. The ego loves the drama. The problem with that is that as it delves its identity further, your health starts to suffer, and it casts a really gray shadow on your experience of life. But it's highly addictive. So the key is to catch yourself, and this is what I mean by trigger proof, is that you catch yourself in the awareness of it, Ed. You're like, okay, so I'm really trying to make them wrong, and I'm trying to be right now, which it's a higher vibrational kind of thought, and it takes some level of maturity and awareness, because when we get triggered, we get kind of activated, and we get knocked into an old wound. And what happens to you, Ed, probably, is you get knocked back to your 8-year-old competitive self, or that kid that was bullied in high school, and you turn 8 years old. So you go into a juvenile state. So when you see couples arguing, lawyers that are, working with couples who are like arguing, they come to me in my practice. I'm like, it's like talking to like children in a schoolyard. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what happens, because they're both knocked into their core abandonment wounds.
Yeah.
You regress is what happens.
So let me ask you this then. Oh, hold on. Someone's calling me.
If it's for me, tell them I'm not here.
Who's calling me from Houston? Okay. Houston, 7-1. Okay. Anyways. Okay. So here's the thing is, like, I used to do this, and I think I still do this to a degree, Nima, is like, I would wake up in the morning and I would literally be looking for triggers. So because that was fuel to my production.
That was fuel to your production. You were going with something to prove. Okay, Ed, I'm so glad that you said this. Holy shit, you just opened up a great. Let me get up and start, because I think better as I'm standing. Okay, so what you're doing is I can relate to you, because I was looking for the same thing. It's kind of like a motivation, because your reason, your why, when it becomes to prove somebody else wrong, it's based on an egoic state, which is the anger is a motivating tool to get you fired up and working, which is good. It's like the spark you need. The problem is that that's not sustainable long-term. You will burn out. Your health will suffer, because the fuels, the rocket fuel you're using to get that engine going is fast burning, but it will burn out. It's not sustainable, and the cells of your body will die. and the breakdowns in your health are the gift to help you get connected with the higher purpose, which is to actually help solve problems and liberate doctors and men, which is a very noble cause coming from a pain, but it's not to prove somebody else wrong. It's actually to serve. That's more sustainable. That's such a great, and how did you, my question to you is, how did you kind of clear that? Or are you still going through that right now? You're still, you still wake up and go, all right, who can I be pissed off in? Let me check out this other marketer asshole so that I can just put up more content in rage.
You know what? I do it less. Like, I mean, I think the first thing was I realized it. Like, I saw it.
Yes.
And so once I realized it, I was like, okay, well,
that's not healthy.
This isn't powerful. I'm not showing up powerfully when I show up in a state of ego like that. And then I just kind of like, you know, I still slip back. Like, you know, here's where I slip back with these is if it's like, if it's relationship stuff. Yeah. That's where like business stuff I can get over, whatever. I can get over that stuff. But when it comes to relationship stuff, there's certainly, those are the wounds and the triggers that hit me. Right. And, yeah, sometimes I just kind of like it, like you said, you know, I feel like almost like I'm a little bit immature when it comes to,
you know, every one of us are, Ed. It's, you literally got knocked into your wound. And one good question that you will want to ask yourself when that happens is, as it's happening, and you can awaken from this little dream of rage that you're having, you ask yourself this question: how old am I right now? How old am I being right now? And it's just like, oh shit. And then you realize it's this 12-year-old, it's the 12-year-olds that were bullying me, that I'm actually, what's happening right now has got nothing to do with what's happening right now, which then shines a light on a very important thing. And this is part of the model. This is why I left full-time chiropractic to teach this, is because your healing journey cannot be complete if those, let's say the bullying in school that this is bringing up, or the you know, you got cheated on by your girlfriend when you were, you know, 18 years old and your heart was broken, and you just keep this wound keeps following you. It's, if you twisted your ankle at the age of 18 and you didn't really allow it to heal properly or get the right therapeutics, the adjustments, the therapeutics, the mobilizations, so that it could heal properly, it's carrying with you. So when you walk upstairs, you have a little bit of a limp. You've now, just the triggers that you're having right now that are continuously coming up, that are not of any, you have zero control over, are actually windows of emotional wounds. You are responsible for going back and recontextualizing. Otherwise, it will follow you for the rest of your life, bro. So you have two options. This is what I tell my clients. This is what I tell people. You have two options. You can be aware of it and then try to run away and avoid it, in which case you're just going to keep running into it again and again and again. Or you can take responsibility and learn the skills of becoming trigger proof, so that you don't feel like somebody else is in control of your effing mind. It's the worst feeling in my life to know that somebody else is dangling the strings of my own mindset. I'm too much of a control freak.
Pulling the strings.
Yeah,
the puppeteer.
I'm not the one in control. Somebody else is dangling this, and I can sit there and blame them for it and call them assholes, but who's the one giving them the power? Yeah. This asshole. So it's just it's just been an evolution, man. And I teach what I most needed to learn.
So let me go back. Let's go back. So we had our first conversation when, it was 4 years ago. I remember that clearly too, because I remember pronouncing imposter incorrectly. I said imposture. I was literally in my exam room trying to figure out how could I get online. Like I was like just trying to figure this online stuff out. So, and then we fast forward, and then we got on another call, and it was like maybe a year, 2 years later, and you wanted to do it live. And I'm like, yeah, no way. But you took me through this method, like the overview method, right?
Right.
So it's probably been another 2 years since then. Okay. So has the overview method changed or evolved?
Oh my God. Oh my God. What a great question. Ed, it totally has. Now, the method began, I'm one of the disciples of John DeMartini. I'm like one of his like biggest fans. He's like my, he's the guy that basically has opened my eyes to the power of perceptions and asking the right questions. And so I started studying his method for, I don't know, 5, 10 years. And when you spend enough time with somebody and sit at their feet and really learn and just master and just spend hours upon hours, you start to develop some preferences with the way you want to do them. And you start adding your own spin on things. So the overview method is my own spin on John's work, getting his permission, sending it all to him, having him look at it. And he goes, all right, that's good. Make sure you footnote this and credit me. And I'm like, absolutely. I don't go out there pretending that you weren't the one that inspired this. So getting his full permission, as well as bringing in some Byron Katie, some Andrew Bernstein, and that's what was out there. It's an evolution. And John's method too, the DeMartini method, 20 years ago had only 4 columns. And now, 20 years later, it's got 14 columns of questions. So everything is an evolution, and it usually happens as I go through my challenges. Over the last year, when I suffered my partner and I had a massive toxic relationship breakdown where it forced me to go back and learn, I realized that the overview method actually couldn't work when I was in a constant state of alarm. And what I learned was the overview method is a cognitive-based tool which asks you questions, which recontextualizes traumatic events and has you seeing how what was once in the way is on the way. I took you through that. And what was missing at the time that I took you through it, which is now completely changed, and now I have these trainings that we do it, is the body-based work. I met a man by the name of Dr. Russell Kennedy, who is called the Anxiety MD, struggled with anxiety all his life, health anxiety specifically.
You told me about him.
He's from Victoria. He's become one of my closest friends and brother. And he started mentoring me and taught me how to get into the body, somatic work. So now the overview experience, my weekend workshop, has included breath work in it, body-based work, and also the cognitive work. So I added an extra day. In my programs online, we add the body-based stuff. We add all inner child work, family constellation stuff, all the stuff I've been sending to Karen and saying, hey, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, make sure you do this. That was the journey that I went on, and I've now integrated all of those tools into the methodology that I teach. And I started studying with Dr. Peter Goldman with the Zone School of Healing. And I now, in my chiropractic practice, put in the emotional component with it. So yes, it's changed quite a bit. And I'm sure in 5 years' time, it'll change, it'll evolve with me.
That's pretty cool, dude. I was thinking about this morning as well as, there's that cliche of love what you do, right? Or just don't do it, right?
Correct.
I was really trying to think, I was going to post, I'm like, I'm in love, but I mean, I'm in love with producing.
You are.
I am. I'm a creative, I'm a producer. If I'm not producing, if I'm just
blows my mind,
recycling stuff and just, selling or whatever, I start getting really antsy. So yeah, what are you in love with?
That's a great question. I'm in love with teaching. So for me, it's not producing for the sake of producing, but I love teaching. I love this conversation. I love what I'm doing right now. I love it. I don't love the production aspect of it. I'd rather, while I'm teaching, have a whole team just producing that shit for me.
Right.
But what I'm doing right now is what I love to do. In fact, I was just thinking, that question that you get, if you won the lotto tomorrow, you won $10 million tomorrow, and money wasn't a factor, what would you be doing? I know for a fact you would just be upscaling your production, right? You wouldn't just, I don't see you just, you'd be like all in. You wouldn't just go to Maui. You'd probably go hang out in Maui for a while, right?
Maybe, I don't know.
Right? You go to Maui, but you just go, all right, so now I got to hire a bigger company, a bigger team. And now we start up leveling I already know you because I know that that's what you would do, right? If I did that and there was no, and I'm, you know, if there was nothing, money was not a factor, what would I be doing? I literally would be doing exactly what I'm doing right now. I would just upscale the production. I'm now 4 episodes into my new show, Trigger Proof. And I can't wait for Wednesdays at noon to be able to go up there and just keep delivering, because I go in there completely unscripted, kind of like this conversation. I have one policy is none of what I do is scripted. It is all comes through me authentically. So I would be doing that. So I am doing it. I'm doing what, if no more money, if money wasn't a thing, I'm actually doing it. This conversation is a part of it. In about an hour, I'm going to be hopping on a call with somebody who watched one of my trainings on my timeline and was like, holy crap, I gotta, you know, you're speaking to me. Like I resonate. It's as though you're in my head, and I really, you know, really resonate with your messaging and what you're saying. And I need your help. I'm like, great. I love helping people with exactly the shit that I just went through.
That's a gift.
It is.
It is a gift. I mean, it's not like, I mean, a lot of people think it's about like, they should build a funnel. It's not. It's about your heart and your message and how you can actually, you know, like having a conversation like we're having today, like it's probably going to turn some people off and some people it won't. Like some people it'll connect with, and that's cool. Then
I'm sure that when they see the two of us, many will be turned on, my friend, if you know what I'm talking about. White meat or dark. It all depends if you're like white meat or dark. It's up to you. That's like awesome. When we went out in Vancouver, Ed and I went to a restaurant with Al Desaulniers, and he's like, hey, you like white meat or dark? Come on. It's a question I like asking all the waitresses.
All right. So let me ask you this. Oh shit, I lost my question. No, I got it now. I'm just making this up as I go. So if there's people that are listening right now, right, they're hearing your message and they're kind of connecting with you, like maybe that person you're going to be on with like in an hour, like, so I'm going to call this emotional constipation. So they got the emotional constipation, the wound, right? So what do they do? Like they're hearing this. How do they connect with you?
How do they connect with me?
Yeah, or, like if they want to get on a call with you, they want to.
Yeah. Just send a private. Send a private message and let me know what is, you know, what did you just become aware of? What was stopping you? Here it is. The resentment or wound that you know has been blindsiding you, has been completely stopping you from really achieving. Because the stuckness happens 2 reasons. You're holding on to a wound and you're too afraid to step into your next level of fear. So to clear your feelings of stuckness, you must get vulnerable and face a fear, and you must let go of a resentment. Those are the 2 things. So if you're listening and you're feeling like you're stopped and you know exactly what it is, like you just had a breakdown with an associate, you're still wounded over a relationship that hasn't healed yet, which is normal because most trauma is separation trauma, starting from the primary wound, which is the separation at birth. James Hollis says we never really fully recover from that, but we just keep running into that. And you're seeing it happening again and again, and you're falling into this pattern of self-sabotage. You're disconnected from yourself, and you know that there's something greater, and you've had mojo before, so you know it's been there. You have evidence of greatness already there. You're just disconnected from it, or you're out of alignment from it. Send me a private message, and I don't know. Let's see if it's solvable.
Is it truly like the onion? Like, is it like you go through one layer, then another layer, then another layer?
Yeah, there usually is. Yeah, there usually is. You peel it back, and then because every stage of your life, that's why I call it transitional anxiety. As you're going through, like I remember when I sold my chiropractic practice, you know, it's kind of like a leveling up that I was doing, and every level up brings the devil up, brings that shadow up, right? So as I level up and I'm getting out of my chiropractic practice and negotiating with the guy who was selling it, it was like I was going through another divorce again. And so that onion, as I leveled myself up in that transitional anxiety, it forced me to peel back another layer and look at aspects of my marriage that weren't yet complete. So part of the work we do in transitional anxiety, if you're leveling up or you're jumping into a new thing or relationship limbo or whatever, is we go back to those incomplete layers of that onion. And instead of focusing on now, we don't worry about what's happening now. It's not about what's happening now. It's about this past stuff. And as you resolve that past stuff, your next move becomes available. You're like, oh crap, I cleared that past thing there. And now I know what the next thing is. So it becomes more, you're like, okay. So you peel back that layer and you do get to a deeper layer. And the deepest of all layers is all about getting to the point where you can look in a mirror. Here's how you know you've won. Mm-hmm. You look in a mirror, and despite what other people are saying about you, despite their words, despite their perceptions of you, which could be totally wrong, you still are able to look in a mirror. You're able to know who you really are and go, I really love that guy. And I really love that person that I'm looking at in the mirror. Truly, in my body, from a felt sense. That's a big hurdle for most people. They'll look in the mirror and they have so much guilt and shame. They're like, and that just devastates all relationships, parenting, your health, business, everything gets screwed if you don't get that part right. But when you do, and you're able to look there, despite what other people are saying, you've now won. And that's a tall order for most people, but that's what really being trigger proof is all about.
Okay.
That's my next mountain that I'm climbing, is teaching people how to do that. Because whether you're a chiropractor, if you're a chiropractor and you're trying to get out there and speak, you're constantly afraid of being rejected, but that's not new for you. This is like freaking schoolyard stuff and old wound stuff. So find out what's stopping you right now, where it's coming from, and if you're committed to resolving it.
I mean, I can recognize that in other people more than I can recognize it in myself.
It's like, I'm really good at solving other people's problems. It's just when it comes to my own shit, I just can't do it.
Or even more when I'm like, I want to trigger people, but they're trigger proof. And then it's infuriating. It's like, you know what I mean?
You're trying to fuck with people and they're not biting.
Why is this not triggering you? Like,
you're so funny. I can't believe you're saying this. It's awesome.
But it's true. It's like, I'm sure people have seen that in even inside of relationships, right? Have you ever had that? You get in an argument with your spouse, and
two egos, two wounded children trying to hurt each other. And what you're doing is you're trying to get them to, and that's ego.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's a sign of us that's a sign. It's a sign of, a call on us. It's a call to action to grow the fuck up. It's what it is.
Here's the reality. I can be real on the podcast because people aren't investing in me for relationship advice. So
exactly. Totally. Totally.
They're just it's all about results.
And here's the best part. I am the last person to give relationship advice. I don't do couples counseling. I've been through a divorce. I have gone through some messes with my relationships and made some major discoveries that are of huge value to an individual who's struggling in that limbo state between together and separate. Because there is some growth that's required to be done to get on the other side, to be really aligned with that other person. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that you got to be together. I'm not saying you have to be together, but it's wise to, right now, for example, I'm having this conversation with you, and I'm in my old home that I used to live in. And through my divorce back in 2012, this was my condo that we bought together, and it's now hers. Now she's away on holidays for a few months and I'm staying here. Right? So we're not together, but we're friends. And this is not, and I'm very clear in saying I don't give parenting advice. I don't give relationship advice. I help people get connected with themselves and complete with themselves and their relationships so that they can then build intimacy moving forward and not have to carry all of the incompletes from their past relationship and dump them onto their new one, which is what we all do.
So out of all the people that you speak to, you get on these calls with, and like let's make this specific to chiropractors. So out of all of those people that you speak to that are chiropractors, is this the route? So like, because I meet so many docs who are stuck, right?
Yeah.
I've been so here's what I hear. I've been in practice 25 years. I'm burned out. I'm stuck. My practice was doing this and now it's doing this. And so they're in that place of, let's call that like business constipation.
Yeah.
So
I call it career limbo.
So it's career limbo then. Yeah. So like, is that the conversation you often have with doctors
Same
as well?
thing.
Same thing.
Exactly the same thing. And the prescription is the same. Number one, you got to regulate your nervous system. You have a dysregulated nervous system. You're completely like, you don't know who you are when your body is in a state of alarm. If I'm in a state of anxiety and alarm and my nervous system is tweaked and dysregulated, one of the symptoms, other than sleeplessness, digestive issues, thyroid, and all the other stuff you have with your nervous system being dysregulated, is I don't feel who I am. I'm disconnected from myself. That's the first step. Number two, get complete with your past. Those docs that are stuck will all, because I speak to them all the time, they have an old wound, whether a business associate that screwed them over, an associate, or they got screwed over by their host doc. And it's just a very toxic kind of relationship separation trauma that is incomplete, that's contributing for them being stuck, that their nervous system is in fight or flight. Okay, so they got to get complete with that. Number three, they're stuck because they're holding on to guilt and shame, or an imbalance with their shadow. Like they don't really know. There's a guilt and shame and a lack of vulnerability. There's a wall there. There's an inner child wound that either they're aware of, or they try to say, whatever, I was molested as a child, but I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to open up those can of worms. It was in the past. And so that's causing the stuckness, right? And so once you get clear on those, and then you teach that person how to have empathy, not only for themselves, not only for other people, but how to have empathy for yourself. And then a community or a tribe of people who are like, they're supporting you, that stuckness turns into absolute purpose. He's like, I know who I am. I know why I'm here. I know like what my zone of genius is and how to best serve the world. Now on the other side of that, because I know that, now I'm going to start taking better care of myself. Now I know why, because now I exercise now. I go to the gym. Like for the last few months, I've been so diligent because it's tied into purpose now. Before it was like, I should be going to the gym because, whatever. Now it's like, I want to have the mental toughness and the physical ability to carry forward my mission. And just as a side effect, if I look sexier, all the better. But that's not my primary purpose.
All the
right?
ladies are watching, yeah.
So yes, the stuckness, this is exactly the same reason why you hire a mentor, is because, yeah, you can help other people, but you need, the outside of a mayonnaise jar, the inside of a mayonnaise jar can't read the label. So it's helpful to have somebody who's been there, who gets you, who's going to kick your ass into a greater version.
So right now, of everyone who's watching, listening, what's one thing they should do right now to help them move towards being more or less like less
trigger proof. Yes.
One thing.
More less trigger happy, more trigger proof.
Yeah.
Now, first thing I want to say is trigger proof doesn't mean trigger less. I get triggered all the freaking time. Okay. The difference is now with this work, the space between stimulus and response has now expanded. So now when I get triggered, I now know how to go inside, and I know how to inquire, and I know how to get into my body, so that I can then respond and realize that, holy crap, I just totally made up a story about Ed. When you said that, Ed, what came up in my mind was, you freaking a-hole, you're this, and this. And I almost reacted to you, but that's the story I made up in my mind. And what happens is, when I can call myself out like that with you, then that builds like a trust and intimacy in our relationship, and a trust and intimacy with myself, because I now know.
You tell me that, like
Yes.
I trigger you, and then you
Okay.
tell me immediately, you're like, dude, you just triggered me, and here's why.
Exactly. That's called a conscious relationship.
Okay.
Because here's the thing.
I thought you're supposed to squash this shit. No.
Yeah, I know. That's, and then get digestive issues, and wonder why.
Touche. Touche.
Right? Wait. I've always squashed it. And I'm like, I know. I've been trying to reach out to you and go, dude, I can help you with your digestion, but you're always like, no, I don't want anybody to talk to me about it. I'm like, okay, I'll bite my tongue, because I'm watching and I'm taking notes. Right? So yes. So here's what I hear. Let's say you live in Vancouver. Let's say you live in Vancouver, or I moved to Victoria, which, by the way, is totally in my plans. Yeah. And then I'm like, all right, I'm going to establish a true bromance with my friend Ed, and we're going to hang out. We're going to go weekly basis. And then all of a sudden, after a few weeks, I start noticing you triggering me. Mm-hmm. Most men just avoid that. But I'm trying to raise a race of human beings, especially men, because, as you said, most of them squash it, which leads to volatility, violence, shame. And that's why us men commit suicide like 50 times more than women, right? Mm-hmm. You're basically talking about the exact symptom, the root cause of the underlying problem. So what I would do now is basically hang out with you and have a conscious relationship with you and go, the other day when you've been showing up like at least 15 to 20 minutes late. And the story that I'm making in my mind is that you are a complete narcissistic bastard and you don't give a shit about my time. And what I realize is I haven't actually expressed to you my feelings and how much it bothers you. And I'm really creating a future with us that we can actually be in communication with that stuff. That's like a conscious relationship. Tell them I'm not here, whoever it is, by the way. Just tell them to leave me alone, okay?
Someone's triggering me.
So essentially to answer your original question, which is what do people listening do, is stop being afraid of your triggers. When they happen, realize there's a core wound and it's all entirely not about them, it's about you. And what's available to you is a window to go in and really appreciate yourself deeper and to resource yourself. Because if you feel a deep core wound of I'm not enough or I'm not lovable, then I'm more likely to get triggered by somebody. But when I've really resourced myself and I've really given my own attachment wounds myself, rather than needing somebody outside of me to give it to me, then what happens is I'm resourced and you're safer to say whatever you want around me, and I'm less reactive towards you, which then breeds a feeling of safety, which then breeds a feeling of intimacy, so that you feel seen and heard. You can be real amongst your people. And the biggest fear, we all have a fear of really being seen. Yet at the same time, we want to feel seen. So we walk around with these masks. You now can walk around in your chiropractic practice, in your family life, in relationships, friendships, without having to wear a mask anymore.
Yeah, it's like a fear of confrontation, right?
Right. Where it's like, with me, it's like, okay, so here's the deal. This is what came up for me. So my confrontations now are all about just calling out what came up for me without making you wrong about it. There's an art to that. That's the part where we're teaching, where I had to learn, was called what I call empathic communication, empathic listening, empathizing with the other person that you're wanting to blame, but also empathizing with you simultaneously. That's a very conscious, deliberate healing type of action. Empathy towards self and other is what will heal a relationship. If you're, let me give you an example.
I think we could have like 10 conversations.
Dude, let's do this weekly. I don't mind. Like, we can do this. But let me give you an example, Ed. If you're on the outs in a relationship with somebody, and you are in a breakdown mode and you're not speaking and that's not happening, if I'm in that situation with you, I can totally help you heal that. I could totally solve that by stopping and resourcing myself, empathizing with my position, which means doesn't make you wrong. Empathy doesn't make the other person wrong. This is the key. Ego wants to make the other person wrong. Empathy sees both souls as wounded children. Okay? So if I can do that, and then I come back to you, and then I completely empathize with you, I've now brought the wall down and now bridged that gap between where whatever was broken. And why that's important, Ed, is because if we don't do that, and we have these open loops in business and personal relationships, we carry them with us.
So then I win, then you win.
Exactly. The person, I will win. It's all about winning. Great. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. It's all about winning and making the other person lose. Yeah.
I empathized. Take that.
I empathize, so I win. Yeah. That's not the idea. The idea is to, So there's some work to do, Ed. Let me know if I'm here for you, brother.
No, I totally hear you, but I mean, like, it's difficult sometimes to empathize with someone, and then we'll wrap this up. I won't keep you up forever, but it's difficult to empathize when you realize that there possibly is some manipulation on the other end, or is that ego speaking?
Okay, here's the deal. That's a great point. When I am in my core wound, Ed, okay, you have kids, right?
Yep.
How many times have you seen them manipulate you to get what they freaking wanted?
Every day.
Only every fucking day, right? So here's the thing. It's difficult to empathize with them, isn't it? Or can you see through it and go, oh, they're manipulating. That's their child. That's their childlike state. And I see through it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you can do that with your partner, which, yes, when manipulation is what a child does because they feel that that's the only way to get their needs met. We all do that. That's what sales and marketing is. So it's we got to own it. Manipulation is the name of the game when we're in ego. The trick is, in order to heal the relationship, is I can see and feel you manipulating me right now, and I hold firm in myself because I'm resourced and I know who I am, but I see the innocence of the other person who's doing that because they are really in a dark, difficult place. Kind of like you would do for a child.
Yeah, you would show love.
Exactly. So is it difficult? It's damn near impossible for most of us when we're in ego. But this work that I'm talking about when I talk about the intimacy upgrade for people is only for those looking to heal the toxicity from their relationships by taking responsibility for it rather than saying the other person must be the one to do it for me. This is me grabbing, because I'm a control freak too, grabbing the wheel and saying, I'm going to be the one at cause. And I do that only through empathy and seeing through their ego, their wounds, which is manipulative, which is manipulative, which is juvenile, which is victim-y, which is all of those things. Yes. And that's not the truth of who they are. And it's not the truth of who you are either. It takes work to get there though. And I'm a work in progress.
Here's what I'm hearing.
Go for it.
And just for me, this is what I'm taking from this. Cause like, it's, I've got the wounds and I'm experiencing, I'm trying to, I'm triggering and being triggered and all these different things. When you're in that state, Nima, you can't produce. Like you can't. So like remember we talked, we're going full circle here. Remember we talked about, I'm a creative producer. I love that. And then I've had a little bit of a mental block in some of that stuff lately, but when you're in that trigger state, when you're in that non-empathetic state, when you can't, in the anger, all those different places, like
you can't. You want to know why?
create.
Want to know why?
Why?
Because 3/4 of your brain isn't working. You are in a state of alarm. Your amygdala is hijacking, and if your ego's driving the bus, your neocortex is shut down, which is what I learned last year when I was trying to use my old cognitive tools to try to solve a body-based alarm problem. And if you're going through divorce, separation, trauma, whatever, you're not producing, you're in ego, you're not in soul, you're basically your neocortex, which is your intuitive center, your creative center, which is problem solving, is gone. So you lose. If you want to say, you lose. So it's really difficult, but it's going to sound weird, but love and gratitude to get there authentically is your only access point back to your creativity. The problem is your ego doesn't want that. Your ego wants to fucking resist that because it wants to stay in its childlike state to protect, to defend, to make you right, to make the other person wrong, for you to win and have the other person lose, to point the finger and blame and shame and alienate. This is the path. This is the way, my friend. Healing is a spiritual path, is a spiritual journey. And it's not just religion. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about your state of conscious awareness. And love is the only way through. And you can't fake it. You can't bypass it.
Well, you know, it's not sexy either or powerful to show up.
No, revenge is. Revenge is like vengeance.
Yeah.
You know, when you're in vengeance mode, that's ego. You're in a dark place, man.
It's the pit.
And it's not sustainable. You'll burn your adrenals out and your health turns to shit and you look older and it's not cool.
It's not good. All right. Okay. So I'm going to wrap this up. So everyone who, I don't know how long we spoke. It feels like a good 40 minutes, 45 minutes. We always end up going longer. So I'm going to bring this full circle. Number one is heal the wound, right? Number one is like, number two is like, okay, get into that empathetic self-love state and, you know, face your, like, be like the collision, be there, be able to collide. Like when you're triggered, collide right away. Like don't
run from it.
Don't run from it.
Don't run from it. Feel it, and then and learn the tools to inquire to get yourself out of that and into empathetic state. That takes some training, but you can get there.
And anger and fear, we talked about that. And then the last part, I'll just kind of surmise this was, you know, you're triggered when you want to throat punch people.
That's essentially the one line that sums this entire conversation. Bingo, you nailed it.
I did. We could call it like an energetic throat punch, like it's not a physical one or something. But anyways, no, I love these conversations because you know what, I think that you know a lot of, again, and because now with Men of Iron and how I've worked with men inside of that game and coaching men on a weekly basis and seeing how they show up and when they do the work and they don't do the work and seeing them transform over time. This is, and it is interesting because we don't talk specifically about business or marketing, but it's interesting how their business starts to double, triple, you know, when we address this stuff.
Yeah, because every business problem is actually a personal problem in disguise.
Fucking A, man. Like, yes.
That's what this is. So when you invest in the alignment of your soul with your mission and your past and all of that stuff, all of a sudden it's kind of like you're in alignment and then you are now a vehicle, right? Every business problem is a personal problem in disguise. So that's why you're seeing those. That's why we see those results. One of my clients, he's a big shot construction guy in Australia, really successful company, but he was stuck at like this many million per year, right? So we went into his case, I saw, okay, what were his resentments and his angers and his incompletes? And he fired his CEO like 2 years prior, and it was a court case, and it was really traumatic, right? There was a court case, he had to fire his CEO, it was just ugly, right? And every time he would think about it, he would start getting anxiety and he was stuck, right? So guess what we did? We cleared the resentment. We used the overview method, cleared the resentment, connected with his inner child, all of this stuff, cleared that, and had him do probably one of the most
scariest things was to face that trigger and go and completely restore the integrity of that conversation and call out where he was inauthentic with it. And he's like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And I held his feet to the fire. He had the conversation. He totally got complete. He messaged me. He goes, oh my God, it's like the world has shifted. He was totally receptive. It totally completed that little cycle, that open loop. And it was like gone. And he's like, I said, how do you feel? He goes, I feel different. I feel lighter. Well, guess what his business did within the next 6 weeks? It literally doubled. And he's like, I just signed the biggest contract of my career. And now his next problem was, crap, now I got to hire a manager to be able to, because the volume is too much. So he's now graduated to the next level up, which brings another devil up. But that's exactly what happened. It was a personal issue, a soul issue that was affecting his business. So what I've noticed is when I just go inside and I stop worrying so much about marketing and what I'm going to say, and I just go inside and get clean and clear of my own resentments, the next move, the next client, the next person I'm here to help just shows up because of who I'm being, because I'm so in a flow state, rather than trying to push a boulder up a hill out of resentment because I want to prove some asshole wrong. I'm doing it because it's coming through me, and it's a far healthier way. And I can see that happening with you in your evolution. When you really start putting your pedal to the metal with this, I would love to help you with it. I think I know, and I'm here for you anytime, man. I'm just letting you know that.
No, I appreciate that. Like, I mean, I probably, like myself included, and probably many people listening to this interview today, you know, there's difficult conversations that we know we need to have, confrontations, collisions that we know we need to have to heal the wounds, and we're avoiding them.
You know what Tim Ferriss says? He says, what did he say? He said, your success in life is determined by the number of uncomfortable conversations you're willing to have.
No, I believe it.
So this is interesting. I had a client yesterday. She's dealing with stuckness, complete lack of faith and confidence in herself. She was divorced 10 years ago. She's trying to run her business, and it's just stuck, and hasn't had a relationship, and just feeling like, why am I so disconnected? Why am I so disconnected? So then when we find out, turns out she hasn't spoken to her mother in 4 years because she has a story that her mother's a complete bitch and da-da-da-da-da. So then just last night, we got off the call, and we did the overview on it and completely saw a different perspective of her mother, who was really being in a very deep, dark place, in a wounded place when she was raised. Our parents have no clue. They were operating from a place of wound the whole time, right? They didn't know how to see themselves, let alone how to empathize with us and make sure that our attachment needs were met. She finally saw that in a felt sense level, changed the story. And I said, all right, so pick up the phone after this call. So she calls her mother, and afterwards posts in our group this amazing testimonial going, I just had my life completely change. I just spoke with my mother for the first time in 4 years and realized that I had been making up a victim story about her. And I saw her for the first time and now felt seen for the first time. She goes, life feels different. And you could see the look on her face was different, because before she was coming from that place of fight or flight. And now it was like this level of peace on her face. And now I know that the trajectory of her life is completely different, because the goggles of victimhood were taken off. So it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
And I love doing it.
Yeah.
It's fun.
All right. So
I heal my own wounds by helping other people heal theirs.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back into TCP mode here. Okay. So, all right.
So, is that what we're doing?
This isn't.
I forgot. Is that what we were doing? I forgot. Okay, I thought
this is going to be like, it could either be the best TCP interview ever, or it could be the worst.
Yeah, and I'm okay. And the good thing is, I'm okay with either of them. You know, it would probably trigger me to think somebody didn't like me, but I'm okay. I actually know myself now, and I'm okay with that.
I get free therapy for an hour. Come on.
Okay, perfect. Exactly.
A free math overview.
So, okay, kind of, not really, but kind of. Okay, so TCP listeners, all right. So here's what we're going to do. You can actually head over to thechiropracticphilanthropist.com. When we get this published, we'll have all the links, resources to check out Dr. Nima and the overview method. And you can actually listen to the podcast. If you're listening on your mobile, all you need to do is actually expand open those show notes, and you'll actually find the links and resources right there. But again, that's thechiropracticphilanthropist.com, the #1 podcast in chiropractic today.
Hell yeah. Hey, you know what I just realized you forgot to say? We're both going to be in Jamaica.
Oh my
together.
God.
Okay, please join Ed and I
in Jamaica
and do a chiropractic mission trip with us.
Oh,
come on, God. Ed. I know you don't like crowds. I know you're more of a lone wolf, and you don't like you got this social anxiety thing going. Just shut the hell up. We're gonna have a great time. Come on.
There will be no pictures of me with my shirt off and like in my banana hammock.
Listen, I'm shaving my back so that I can take pictures. You know, I can't.
Dude, I will shave your back for you. You show up, we'll do that. No, literally it will be. So here's #1 is, I'm going to bring a ton of value, in the trainings, and I know that you will as well. They have an incredible lineup of speakers that are coming out. I think Tim Young's going to be also doing the technique.
Yeah. I love Tim. I've never met him.
Dude's like a freaking master. Like, I don't know him, but I mean, I know of him.
Yeah.
And so he's a master, right? So yeah, if you haven't checked that out, definitely check it. It's Spinal Missions, and they've joined with
Chiro Mission.
Laura
and Jason. Yes.
Yeah. The two
together, Chiro Mission and Spinal Missions together. You get a dose of Ed if you prefer white meat. You get dark meat if you prefer dark meat. You got me. Like, I mean, what? You got Dave New in. Like, holy crap.
Yeah. It's going to be great. Yeah. And when I'm in Jamaica, I might be like a little bit crispy chicken.
You will. You will get toasted a little bit, but that's cool. I'm okay with that. But I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It's going to be beyond interesting. All right. So everyone, you know what to do. Head over to thechiropracticphilanthropist.com. Doc, I want to thank you for being on the show today. This was fun. I love doing this. I'm going to do a lot more interviews because I love doing this. This again, it's what I come back to is what you do what you love, and I love doing this, and this keeps me in that creative space, and I get free mentoring and therapy. So.
Let me know when you're ready for your next session, and we'll do it public.
Oh God, yeah, that's what you offered 2 years ago. I won't do. I don't think I can ever. I'll
do it for you if you're ready to get real publicly. You're like, no, there's no way.
Yeah, I'll traumatize everyone. They'll be like, oh my God, that guy's so messed up. So
I love you, man. I got to tell you, I'm so freaking. I want to acknowledge the fact that you just keep you're like a machine. I'm on your email list. I see like one after another, one new like webinar. Here's a new training. I'm like, damn, man, you just don't stop.
No. Never
All
stop.
The power to you.
Yeah.
All the power to you.
Yeah.
When's your event in May?
My event is on May 3rd, 4th. So yeah, we have just short of 40 doctors will be here. Wow. Yeah. And it's from Australia, like Scotland, Canada, US coming up.
I remember you did a Facebook Live once where you were like, hey guys, I have an announcement to make. No more live trainings. I'm done. It's just not my thing anymore. I'm done.
Well, this is my inner circle. So it's definitely a different crew. And I'm fortunate, dude, because I get to just kind of sit back and like everyone gets like probably the reason why a lot of people like we don't have 100 people there, and I wouldn't want 100 people. 40 is about the max. Is they actually have to get up and present to us, and if they're returning after 3 months, which many of them are, they have to be accountable to doing what they. So we call it do what the F you said you were going to do. So They are accountable to us 3 months later. And this is why so many people get results, right? It's accountability.
100%, bro.
All right, dude.
Big
Peace
love.
out.
And I'll talk to you soon, man. Bye-bye.
You got it. Peace out.
So you've heard the struggles, you've heard the successes, and this episode is done. But there's still so much more to come and so much more to learn. Head on over to the chiropracticphilanthropist.com and sign up for our newsletter, where you'll receive free practice building tips and strategies, including how to market your practice with your very own podcast and so much more. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Chiropractic Philanthropist.